Welcome to Kyle Anthony's UFC Betting Show. I am Kyle Anthony, and welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the betting show for UFC 286, Kamaru Usman versus Leon Edwards. Going to be breaking down the main event, of course. Two plays that we're going to dive into on the show today. But before we dive into all of that, quickly, I just want to let everybody know that I have signed with a podcasting company. We'll be distributing a new show, the MMA Happy Hour, which will be on the Believe Podcasting Network. Will be distributed through them, through Spotify, and through Apple. Really excited about it. Gonna have guests, MMA banter, betting advice, a lot of great stuff. You want more details, check my Twitter, at Kyle Anthony UFC. Really excited about that. Got some good stuff lined up here. So going to be diving more into that next week. So take a look at my Twitter for that. But as of now, we're going to be talking UFC 286. Excited about it. I have a max play on the card this weekend. I have cashed 5 of 6 of these. Really looking good right now. Really feeling good about it. And listen, what we always do every time, whether we win or lose, we got to push forward. A lot of year left on the UFC schedule, so excited about it, and let's dive into it. We got a lot to talk about here. So we're going to be talking about Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman. Now you got Usman currently, he's around minus 260, and on the comeback side here, you've got Leon Edwards, he's around the plus 210 mark. And like we always do here, we're going to talk about 3 fights for each fighter, see what we see if one fighter can expose the other fighter, and if the line makes sense to place a wager. So the first person we talk about here is Leon Edwards, and 2 fights ago, he fought Belal Muhammad. Now, this one here, we all kind of know what happened here in that second round, the eye poke, and all those things. But I gotta say one thing, going back and rewatching that first round, was that Leon looked fantastic. I thought he looked really good in that first round. He did a lot of good things. He was pushing the pace. I thought he had better volume than he normally does. I thought he really kind of pushed out a good volume. He was walking down Belal. Belal could not really cut distance, get inside of the strikes, the big shots. I thought he looked really good throughout that fight. And one of the other things too that you did see was that Edwards landed a big head kick. Now it was like half blocked, but like still, but you see the power, because even through that, you saw that Belal was rocked. He went back up against the fence. I think that slowed down a little bit more of his cardio, of his push when he was hit with that. Edwards kept it going through that, and then going into that second round was where the eye poke did happen. So it was a no contest, but I did like seeing a little bit more from Edwards where it comes to movement, it comes to output, it comes to walking down his opponent. That's kind of been an issue for him with the low volume and all those kind of things. So good showing for him there in that first round, but bad showing getting the eye poke there. So it was a no contest. So there you have it there. And then the second fight, 2 fights ago, he fought Nate Diaz. Now this is one here where it was a client play cash. I did have Leon Edwards to win via points. And this was one here where, this is one we don't got to really dive into, but this was one here where it was all Edwards. I mean, Edwards was out there outpacing, outlanding. I think the big time was a big power advantage for Edwards. I mean, any time that really, Diaz landed, it was, very pitter-patter shots. We've got Edwards, who does have that big kickboxing, that big kicking arsenal, and he was landing, hurting multiple times at Diaz. Looked like, Nate was in bad spots. Maybe the fight wasn't even going to get to the finish line there. And of course, Nate landed the slap in the 5th round, which a lot of, Diaz fans wanted to then just give the win to Nate Diaz. But Diaz got his ass kicked in that situation there. Did not really do too much. Again, I thought it was a nice showing for Leon Edwards. So he goes out there and gets a sweeping decision victory against Nate Diaz. Now, I'm not going to talk about the most recent fight. I'll talk about that, which was Leon versus Usman. So we're going to first talk about Kamaru Usman's last 2 fights. And 3 fights ago, he fought Jorge Masvidal. This was one here where this was the second showing, was the whole thing. It was kind of the rematch that nobody wanted. But it was a spot where, Usman in that first one really took him down, dragged him out. It was kind of that kind of fight. This was one here where Usman really brought it to him, really pushed the pace, looking to land. And this was something that I thought that really you saw early in that first round, just the comfort level that Usman had, kind of moving forward, setting up his jab. I thought that, we really seen the elevation of his striking, of his confidence in his striking, where it just isn't something that he uses to cut distance. It's more to land some big shots, and he was able to do that. And I also thought that Masvidal looked out of sorts. I mean, he really wasn't able to kind of get into rhythm. You could see him multiple times kind of want to throw something, and then Usman throws a jab, or Usman moves out of the way, or Usman clinches. He just really couldn't get into rhythm. Now, with that being said, I'm also not very high on Masvidal at this point in his career. Definitely more on the journeyman side of things. But, I mean, listen, he's a well-rounded kind of guy, and Usman went out there, controlled, and did enough in that first round, got takedowns, got some control time as well, too, in there. And then going into that second round, I mean, Usman lands a massive bomb, drops, rocks, end over, fight over. What a shot by Usman, setting it up perfectly. I thought that he really set it up very nicely, and then he followed up with the big shot, ends him. Brutal KO win for Kamaru Usman. 2 fights ago, he fought Colby Covington. This was also for the second time, and this is a spot here where very competitive fight. Very, very, very competitive fight. And this is another spot, too, where Usman utilizing that jab, and that's something that really his striking coaches and all these world-renowned coaches that he has have really kind of implemented into his game plan. Utilizing all of that early, first round, second round, I thought he looked good. Covington, trying to leg kick, trying to, slap at the legs a little, but those first and second round, I think was Usman pushing the pace, hurt Covington, dropped him at one point, kind of looking to push the pace a little bit more once he was hurt. There was a lot of good things that Usman did early. Second and third round really was Covington kind of getting to his own, and it almost looked like Usman was the one that his cardio was failing. He was slowing down a little bit in that third round. His output was down a little bit there, and Covington kind of took over, pushed the pace, got in his space, kept it going, and really that just, that really shows a lot, I think, with Usman, because he really dug deep here. Going into that fifth round, was, a 2-2, at least I had it that way. And it really all came down to that. And Usman put on, really enough, like what a champion does, really is what I'm trying to say. Really, he dug deep, what a champion does, going out there in the championship round, the final round, pushing the pace against his arch rival, getting the job done. Did not get the finish there, but he does win via decision over Colby Covington. Now, most recent for both these guys was their fight, their second time facing each other, Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman. Now, this one here, not that much to break down, but I think it's, there's some worthy spots here. Really, that first round, I think is really the big talking point for, I think, a lot of people that are breaking this fight down. And early in that first round, you did see kind of the kind of the thing that really Usman does, clinching, up against the fence, feeling that he's got that such an advantage in the grappling, in the wrestling, that he would be able to kind of push him up against the fence, keep him there, hold him there, lean on him, keep that pressure there. And credit to Edwards, Usman's never been taken down, but it was almost as if Usman was maybe a lapse in judgment, or just kind of felt like there would be no offensive wrestling. And Edwards gets a takedown, gets some top control, was able to, work to the back, which is really incredible. Usman has this great top pressure, great takedown ability, highly athletic and explosive, but it's interesting to see, Edwards going out there and working through all those things, kind of finding opportunities to slither through and get to the back, even at points where he was submission hunting. I mean, he was at a point where he was searching for that rear naked choke, trying to get under the chin. But really that whole first round was all Leon Edwards. He looked great. Going into that second round, into that third round, Usman had enough of just kind of messing around or whatever it was. He goes out there and he gets quick takedowns in that second round, in that third round, looking for control time, keeping him there. A lot of forward pressure here was really where Usman, I felt like, kind of was taking, kind of trying to get some reads. He said, forget about the reads, I'm going for the takedowns, was able to get some takedowns, out-voluming Edwards overall, kept him up against the fence a bunch of times. I mean, just a lot of really positive things for him after that really tough first round that went to Edwards. He starts chipping away. Even in the fourth round, multiple takedowns for Usman, control time for Usman, and really it started to look like, it was getting easier to kind of take Edwards down. He wasn't really, defending as well, wasn't really scrambling as well. There were those opportunities for him going into that 5th round. I mean, listen, I had in this spot, a client play was Usman via decision. I was basically counting my money at that point. But he goes out there into that end of that 5th round, lands the head kick heard around the world, and shut everybody up who wanted Kamaru Usman via decision. Incredible spot, incredible head kick, really set up well, landed, fight over. So there you have it there. Leon Edwards is the champion. So with it being said, I think the first thing here we'll talk about, obviously, is going to be the wrestling side of things. And it's a massive, massive advantage for Kamaru Usman coming out there, having the ability to get the takedowns. He got 5 takedowns in that second matchup with them, got some good control time, got some top control, some ground and pound, able to keep him down there when he wanted to keep him down there. And really, I attribute that to his quick first step. He's got a great first step. He's got a great opportunity once he goes in there to clinch, chain wrestle, find ways to kind of keep working you once you're up against the fence, keeping you there. And even the clinch control up against the fence is really good. You know, he's got good positions. He's able to kind of keep his opponents there, wear on them, and even if he can, get a takedown. And even the opponent gets back up, utilizing more of his takedown ability, his control time to kind of really wear down and smother his opponent. And he's been able to do that exceptionally well when it comes down to that. And I do think also the fact that, you know, Edwards has the opportunity to possibly look for takedowns of his own. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be diving at legs, but there are those moments where Usman's up against the fence. I think this will also, you know, this could make him a little bit more timid, a little more aware, since Edwards now is looking to be offensive where he's looking for some of these takedowns. Now, the biggest issue for Edwards is going to be his low volume. I mean, that's been something that I think everybody has said ad nauseum. Just low volume allows opponents, you know, space. Really, just if you continue to throw the volume, it starts to make the fight a little bit closer. And Edwards is the kind of guy that has been able to get these victories, has been able to kind of, you know, squeak out some and dominate some as well too. But it's just an interesting situation that if he has this low volume, that's somewhere where Kamaru can take advantage of. He can look for the takedowns. If, you know, these laps of action could provide the landscape for Usman to get the takedown. Now, on the other side of things, I think the way that Edwards could get this finish, or at least kind of, maybe not get the finish, but get the victory, is really pushing the pace. He's got to push the pace. He has to keep Usman on his back foot. He's got to keep Usman, you know, backpedaling. It's going to be a way more difficult for him to get takedowns, shoot for takedowns where he's backpedaling and on his back foot. That has definitely how Edwards needs to push, needs to land the big shots. And that's how I think he's going to get a little bit more respect from Usman in this fight. And also I think one of the things that I think comes into it that if he can keep his opponent on the back foot is his fight with Belal. I thought that against Belal. Again, Belal is a different fighter when it comes to Usman, but just their path is the same. And I really like the fact that he couldn't really allow Belal to dive to get at legs. The pressure was there. He knew he was being outgunned on the feet and just wasn't really able to get comfortable. And he has to do that to Usman, different beast, but has to do that to Usman in order for him to stay upright, to have opportunities to work on the feet. Striking wise, I think this is, you know, you got to give it to Edwards when you're talking about who has the striking advantage. He's got the crisper striking, the crisper kickboxing. He's got the more versatile combinations. Where Usman, you know, he's definitely getting better. He definitely is getting better with his striking, his boxing, that jab again that we've talked about. Now he's got, you know, he's showing that he's got a powerful right hand. These are things that are starting to add to his tool belt, but I think if this fight stays standing, you really got to favor Edwards in this particular fight. But honestly, this is one of the few fights that I really say a lot of the intangibles and a lot of these other things are some of the things that really could change and really all have advantages towards Edwards when you're looking at these intangibles. And it's something that I don't really normally dive into, or, you know, really I like stats. I like optically seeing things, going back watching fights. Now, these are some of the things that I think really have a big impact on this fight. Now, the first one being, it's the first knockout loss, brutal knockout loss for Kamaru Usman. Now, that is something that a lot of fighters have talked about, where they have a long career, or even the younger guys. You know, if they're coming up and they're 10-0 and they've never tasted defeat, you get brutally knocked out, that is a big time gut check. That's a big time check on yourself about kind of how you are. Now you're talking about a guy who's going to be 36 in a month. Now you're talking about a guy who's a little bit older, who is, has really done it all. I mean, you got to give the guy credit. He's pound for pound, top guy, champion, running through people, having this insanely long winning streak prior to Leon Edwards. All these things that he's done, really, really impressive. Now 36, now brutal knockout. Those are things that could make him a little more timid in the pocket. Maybe he's not looking to shoot as much. Maybe he's a little more worried about the head kick. Maybe he hasn't really fully recovered from such a massive head kick. You never really know how that's going to really transpire. Plus the fact that, yes, he's 36, but Edwards is entering his prime. I mean, Edwards is entering his prime. He's not, he has had lapses of really fights, so his MMA mileage is very low. He's having more fights. He's getting more active. I think these are certain things that could really help him. Also, the fact that Usman on their side has talked about retirement, has multiple times. Now again, you can't put and say, hey, he's talking about retirement, the guy's going to lose. Obviously, that's not the case. But I don't want to hear anything. I don't want to hear jack shit about the fighter I'm betting that he's talking about retirement. I don't want him thinking about anything else but kicking the shit out of the other guy. That's it. And in this situation here, you've heard Usman kind of talk about that. You even heard him talk about that prior to the Edwards fight, about just, hey, there's other things he get into. There was movies. There's, I believe it's fashion he's getting into. He's making, and good for him, 100% good for him. He's parlaying his fame, his championship, all those things into these other things. 100% he should be doing that. But that worries me when you're talking about this guy coming back and trying to fight. Plus the fact that I think this really boosts Edwards' confidence. I mean, he's a guy that needed confidence. He needed confidence. We all saw the corner yelling at him, all those things. He's a guy that needed confidence, and now I think he's earned it on his own. No one talking him into it. He's knocked out the pound-for-pound fighter in the world, knocked out the champ brutally. Whatever happened, he kind of doesn't even care anymore. He seems like a different person. He seems a lot more happier that he's in this particular situation, and also, lastly, is the fact that Usman broke his hand in training. Now, this is a while ago, but there was certain situations where they were saying, is Usman going to be 100%? Are we going to, have somebody step in for him? So there has been that storyline as well too, and also, which is one of the most incredible stats I thought that needed to share, is UFC fighters that are trying to win back their title in an immediate rematch are 3-11 in UFC history. That's a 21% win rate there. Now that is, I think that's an eye-opener. I think that really is interesting, that it really shows that some of these guys that come in, lose a fight, and maybe heading towards the end of their career and come back and fight the person, they don't have the success. I think Nunes was one, or George St. Pierre was the other one, or something like that. But if you look at it, it's three of them. That's pretty crazy. 3 out of 3 for 11 in UFC history. I think I have to go with Leon Edwards here. It's worth it. It is my free play. Leon Edwards plus 210. I think the number's a little bit wide here, and I think these intangible things start to go towards him, especially the fact that the age, I think that starts to go towards him too. And just if Edwards can kind of do the same thing and push and up that volume, I think he's got a great opportunity to go out and defend his title. So mixing in that stat as well too, I do like Leon Edwards plus 210 to get the job done and retain his championship belt. And the last one I'm going to go over very quickly because I just don't know how to shut up, and this show is always long, is Marvin Vettori versus Roman Dolidze. Now you've got Vettori, he's minus 275. On the comeback here, you got Dolidze, he's plus 230. Now, the first thing here is, and I think reason why maybe this line is a little bit wide, is since like 2018, the only people that Vettori lost to is Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya. That's pretty damn crazy when you're looking at it in some of these guys and that he's beaten. Now, the path we know for Vettori is going to be the pressure and it's going to be the pace. That's really going to be the way he's going to find success, grinding it out, using some boxing, but grinding it out. He's got a granite chin, He can take a brick to the face and keep moving forward. He's a tough guy. But I think really where you're looking at it and kind of who's got, what are the issues for both of these guys? I think the first part here is that Roman Dolidze has terrible cardio. We've seen him kind of fall off a cliff when it comes to that. And on the other side of it, I do think that some of the basic striking of Vettori is an issue for somebody who hits as hard as Dolidze, who does have that ability to drop a big shot. Although he does have a chin, I think it will help him there too. And I think that one of the biggest kind of things you can look at when you're looking at this fight is how Marvin fights, is stylistically how he fights. And his big path, again, like we're talking about, is the grinding out, is him up against the fence, is, maybe some takedowns, doing that kind of thing. If you're looking at it, really Dolidze would absolutely love the opportunity to grapple and clinch for 3 rounds. I mean, I think he would love that opportunity because he can find ways. I think that those kind of things, I think they are tiresome. I think they can be tiresome, but he's so good. Even when he's tired, even if he's on the mat and he's tired, he can find ways. He is so creative. He is so lethal when it comes to that. I think that helps him where it's going to be his comfort zone. I don't see Marvin standing at range, working his boxing. I don't see that. I don't think Marvin even has that good of boxing to begin with. His footwork's kind of herky-jerky. There's not much there to it, and I'm not saying that Dolidze is some high-level striker, but I think that, the pace is a huge factor more for Vettori than it is how good his striking is. He could just push a volume out. He could probably, if he really stood toe-to-toe, he could try to melt Dolidze by just purely making him work, making him grapple, keeping the volume, keeping him working, and finding maybe a finish in that 3rd round or something like that. But I think that the more that Vettori grapples, the more that Vettori's looking to grapple, he's the kind of guy, doesn't have the best fight IQ, but he's the kind of guy to maybe slip his arm somewhere he shouldn't be, pop his head into some spot where it shouldn't be. We've seen what, Dolidze can do, even in bad situations. I mean, against Jack Hermanson, the way he was able to reverse, get a calf slicer, and end up getting a knockout from that. I mean, he is just really lethal when it comes to that, and I think a lot of guys are worried about that. And now, does that force Marvin to stay standing? Who knows? But I think that actually is such an advantage because Marvin's main path is really where Dolidze is saying, I want to be there. I'm fine being there. I think guys that could really hurt Dolidze could be guys kind of volume, guys that kind of move around more, a little bit more footwork, a little bit more distance management. Those are the guys that I feel could really cause some problems for Roman in this spot here. And if he gets it to the ground, I think there is just going to be a massive advantage for Dolidze on the ground. So this is a spot here where if you're looking at Marvin Vettori, I mean, he's minus 275. That's around 75% implied probability. I'm sorry, I don't want to touch Marvin Vettori when he's up near the minus 300 range. Yes, he has the opportunity to get the victory. Yes, there is that cardio advantage I think could be a big help for him in this fight. But I think that the clinch game and being on the mat and being in kind of let's say his comfort zone and wheelhouse, I think very much helps him. So I think this line is a little bit too wide here. I think that this is going to be kind of a sloppy fight in certain spots. And when that is happening, there's no way that I want to be touching a minus 300. I think that Dolidze has the finishing upside, not by knockout, but I think he can do it by submission. He can find it and really kind of look to really advance, whether he's on his back or he's on top position. Dolidze has the opportunity to get the finish. So in this spot here, I do like Roman Dolidze plus 230. I think the price is absolutely good. I think this should be much closer than this line actually is being offered at currently. So I'm going Roman Dolidze plus 230. So those are my plays for UFC 286 this Saturday night. Now I have a max play that is up, link down in the description. Won 5 of the last 6 of these, up over 100 units over the last 3 years. I'm excited about it. Big card, and let's see how we do. This is Kyle Anthony's UFC Betting Show, and I'll see you next time.